Two men stand draped in silk and fur, masters of a world defined by precision, wealth, and the cold, unyielding logic of the Renaissance. Yet beneath their feet lies a jagged, unrecognizable smear that defies the very laws of perspective they otherwise command. Why would a painter as meticulous as Hans Holbein the Younger intentionally ruin his own masterpiece with a smudge of gray? It is a question that gnaws at the viewer, a deliberate disruption of the harmony these figures represent. To understand this anomaly, we must look past the surface of 1533 and into the fracturing soul of a continent. This is a portrait of Jean de Dintville, the French ambassador to the court of Henry VII, and his companion, the diplomat Georges de Selve. They occupy a room that feels less like a study and more like a fortress of human intellect. Yet it is a fortress under siege by the spiritual and political tremors of the Reformation. At first glance, you see a display of total mastery. The painting is a catalogue of the humanistic ambition of the age, proof of the belief that the universe could be measured, categorized, and mastered by the keen eye of man. On the top shelf, the celestial globe, the sundials, and the quadrants represent the quadrivium, those four mathematical arts that sought to map the heavens and measure the divine order of the cosmos. These instruments are not merely tools. They are the physical manifestation of a worldview that placed human reason at the center of existence. They are rendered with a clinical, almost chilling accuracy. One can almost feel the cold brass of the quadrants and the stiff, dry parchment of the astronomical charts. Beside them on the lower shelf, the lute, the hymn book, and the globes represent the trivium, the worldly, intellectual pursuits of man, the culture of the court, and the expansion of the map. It is a portrait of absolute control. It is a portrait of two men who believe they have measured the world, analyzed its components, and found it fundamentally ordered. But then the gaze shifts. You look down and the order collapses. That elongated, diagonal smear stretching across the foreground is not a mistake. It is an anamorphic skull. To see it, you must move. You must abandon the front-facing position that the rest of the painting demands and step to the side. It is a visual trick, a piece of optical sorcery that forces the viewer to physically engage with the canvas to unlock the secret. The skull, when viewed from the correct angle, resolves into a crisp, terrifyingly realistic image of death. It is an intrusion from another dimension of reality, a reminder that the human ego, no matter how elevated, is ultimately subject to the same decay as the lowest creature. The floor upon which they stand is a direct, vibrant reproduction of the pavement in the sanctuary of Westminster Abbey. This is the stage for their worldly power. Yet by grounding these two diplomats on this specific geometric pattern, Holbein is creating a profound tension. He is placing the secular vanity of the court directly within the shadow of the sacred. The patterns of the floor, the circles and squares, are not just decoration. They are a mathematical grid that highlights the intersection of the earthly realm and the eternal judgment of God. The men stand on this grid, oblivious to the fact that their pride is being measured against a standard far larger than their political maneuvers. Consider the lute. It is a beautiful instrument, rendered with obsessive detail, yet one of its strings is visibly snapped. Historically, this is not just a detail of wear and tear. It is a stinging metaphor for the discord and fragmentation caused by the Protestant Reformation. The harmony of the church and the state is physically broken. The music of the spheres, once thought to be perfectly aligned, is now dissonant. The lute, once a symbol of courtly grace and balance, now is a quiet witness to the rupture of European unity. Look at the globes and the measuring instruments. They are tools of exploration and colonial expansion, representing the reach of the French crown. They suggest that the world is a map waiting to be conquered, a space to be partitioned by the ink of treaties and the steel of swords. Yet these tools are placed on the same level as the deathly reminder of the skull. Holbein suggests that all the empires carved out by these men are, in the end, mere dust. The clothing they wear, the heavy, shimmering furs, the dense velvets, the metallic sheen of the daggers, is painted with a tactile intensity that highlights the material weight of their status. It is the peak of 16th century opulence, a heavy, suffocating luxury that anchors them firmly to the earth, even as the skull warns them of their departure from it. Tucked away in the top left corner, partially obscured by the heavy, deep green curtain, is a tiny, almost hidden crucifix. It is barely visible, relegated to the periphery. It suggests that while these men are preoccupied with their instruments, their maps, and their politics, the divine salvation they claim to serve is being pushed to the margins of their lives. It is a subtle, biting critique of their spiritual priorities. They are surrounded by the trappings of power, yet the very symbol of the faith they profess is buried behind the velvet of their own making. The skull is a masterstroke of subversion. It is an asterisk memento mori that refuses to be ignored, yet it is also a trap. It mocks the vanity of these two men, who think they can measure the universe, while ignoring the inevitable end of their own influence. The stronger argument is that the painting is doing something more aggressive than just reminding us of death. It is forcing a confrontation between the viewer and the limits of human knowledge. It demands that you change your position to see the truth. The painting argues that the world of the Renaissance, the world of science, of diplomacy, and of wealth, is incomplete. It is a perspective that only works if you refuse to look at the whole picture. So why the smear? Holbein wasn't ruining his painting, he was setting a trap. He painted the skull to prove that human mastery is a fragile illusion, one that vanishes the moment you change your point of view. The Ambassadors is not a celebration of what these men know. It is a warning about what they choose to ignore. It is a portrait of the blindness that comes with power, a cold, calculated masterpiece that stares back at the viewer with the hollow eyes of mortality, daring us to believe that we are in control. Every brushstroke is an act of defiance against the very men who commissioned it. It is a reminder that the world remains, regardless of our measurements, a place where the shadow of the skull is always, inevitably, lying just beneath our feet.